Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, again, I wanted to bring y'all this special video that I had planned, and maybe next week. So, today guys, I woke up this morning to a lot of smoke in my apartment this morning. That was about 4:30 this morning. You know, I was sleeping in my bed. And just so happenly, I have this keen sense of smell. And I woke up, the first thing when I opened my eyes, it was like a haze. You guys remember when I went and had that eye surgery done? I had cataracts removed from my eyes. So when I woke up and saw all of that smoke, heavy smoke, all in my apartment, I was shocked. And then when I realized that, girl, you removed your cataracts. You had them to remove those cataracts from your eyes. You don't have cataracts anymore. And I realized, I snapped, and I realized this was smoke in my apartment. Everything looked so hazy. Looked so hazy. Just like it did when I had the cataracts. That's how it looked. Like all the time I was in a deep fog or a smoky room or something. And then when I realized I had the surgery to remove the cataracts from my eyes, I jumped up out of my bed and I realized that, this was smoke. So I walked from my bedroom to the hallway and I looked down the hallway and I'm seeing smoke all through the apartment. So I go to the kitchen and I look inside the kitchen and I see the smoke coming from the stove. My reflexes kicked in, y'all, and I ran to that stove and I started trying to see, what was happening. And, I looked at the knobs on the stove and I saw that everything was off. But the light was still on the stove. I know that in the past I had a problem turning that stove off. And, maintenance came over and what they did is they changed out the knobs on the stove. And the stove was working, with those knobs. The buttons were able to turn. So after looking at those knobs, I opened up my stomach hurt just talking about it. My stomach is so upset. I opened up the oven and it was so hot. The heat just came out and just hit me in the face. And I'm like, okay, wait. So I left the oven door open for a minute, and I just started playing with those knobs until finally the heat started, you know, simmering down. And I came to my front door, and I opened the front door wide at 4:30 in the morning. And I stood there for a minute just shocked, looking at the smoke coming from the kitchen and coming from the hallway, all in my living room, going into my bedroom. And I'm just standing here in shock with the door open at 4:30 in the morning. So I just stood there for a minute and just watched the smoke go out of the apartment. And then something said, well, go in the bedroom and open up the patio door also. So that's what I did. I went to the bedroom and I opened up the patio door so the smoke can come out of the bedroom also. And then something said, well, go back to the kitchen and unplug the stove. So, I went to the kitchen and, I managed to pull the stove out so far because, that's a galley kitchen. And, I can't really, I was shaking the stove from side to side trying to make it come out. So it came out so far, and I said, well, okay, let me see if I could pull the plug, from the wall, from the plug, anyway. And I saw that the plug, the wall socket, the electrical socket, is closer to the floor. So I couldn't reach it. So all I was able to do was to just pull the stove out and open the stove so that the smoke can come out, and so that it can cool down. So it cooled down, and I left it pulled out from the wall, and the light is still on, but the heat is not on, but the light is still on. And that's an indication of something electrical. I know firsthand what a house fire, apartment fire, house fire, can take away. I know what a house fire can do to turn your whole life upside down, because my grandson, my baby boy, was in a house fire and he didn't make it. My baby boy didn't make it. And I thought about me laying in the bed, because he was laying in the bed. And I was laying in the bed. And just so happenly, I reacted to the smoke, from the smell of the smoke. And he didn't. My grandson was 16. Well, he wasn't 16 at that time. He was about 19. But my baby boy graduated high school when he was 16 years old. He graduated top 20 in his class. top 20. As a 16-year-old, he graduated high school. You know, he wanted to be a doctor. You know, he wanted to be a surgeon. He was so brilliant, y'all. He was so smart. And the world is going to miss a great doctor in him. The world is going to miss a great father, a great husband. He wasn't married and he didn't have any children. His focus was on school because he was determined to complete his studies because he wanted to be a surgeon. And he wanted to take care of his grandma. He told me he was going to take care of me. You know, my grandson and his mother, they're Nigerian, born and raised in Nigeria. You know, she married my son. You know, my grandson, he was raised to give honor. They're in Nigeria, they give honor, especially to the elderly. And the way that he gave me honor was he bowed down, but he bowed down to the lowest bow. And that means to give the greatest honor. And that's how much my grandson loved me. And he's gone through a house fire. You know, the fire damaged the majority of the house, and especially the room where he was. I don't know how it happened. And, you know, there's so many stories on how that could have happened. But the fact still remains is my baby is gone. And this smoke that the stove did at 4:30 this morning brought back all those memories. You know? And I'll get over it. You know, the smoke is cleared and, you know, I'm secure. Did my baby boy watch over me? Did my baby boy wake me up? Hey guys, I hope that y'all have a great rest of y'all day. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe on my channel. And I'll see you in the next video.